The pace has been frantic in this political season, and it certainly was today. We got a lot to cover on this Friday night. Welcome in to that Dan York State of Mind. I hope your state of mind is good on a Friday night. We are now almost, we're 10 days away from election, and tonight we have Cormick Lynch back in. He's the Republican candidate for Congress, and he hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but he's a very bright guy. He's blue chip other than having a big fat wallet of political donations to work with, and unfortunately these days that's what you have to have. But you know what, we'll have an optimistic conversation about his candidacy and a whole lot more, including your state of mind, up front in the program. Let's dig in and tell you what we're thinking about. There's some good news and some bad news, which ain't so bad, they say, when it comes to Ebola. Buddy Cianci's poll numbers, a little bit of a problem, and a little bit of a mishap today in the news that may cause him a little bit of agita. And then it's about his old style GOTV, and you know what that means, right? I'll tell you in a minute. We had a lieutenant governor debate here that I promised to follow up over, and so I'm going to deliver that to you. And yes, reportedly, Mrs. Clinton is in the house. Then we'll check on you. By the way, program note, some of you may have been confused because you watched this program in its original time period at 7:30 each weeknight. On Wednesday, we had our lieutenant gubernatorial debate, and then on Thursday, we had our lieutenant gubernatorial debate. The reason being, on Wednesday night, we had a Murphy's Law type of situation here, technically, that caused some challenges, and we were unable to, on Thursday, put a full program together. So that's why that happened. By the way, for those of you watching at 7:30, know that the repeat is usually 11:30, and that's widely viewed too. Sometimes I neglect to talk to you about that, but tonight it'll be 10:30 because we've got the World Series on Fox, moving the 10 p.m. news on Fox to 10 o'clock, and then we'll follow behind that. There will be a quiz on that in just a moment. All right, let me get to the headline here. Good news, bad news. First, we got some good news. The good news is that Mr. Mukpo is free of virus, and that is a good thing. He's back home in Providence. The good news as well is that the nurse who had Ebola, one of them at least, who went to the NIH in Washington, is doing well. Thank you.
Although I no longer have Ebola, I know that it may be a while before I have my strength back. So with gratitude and respect for everyone's concern, I ask for my privacy and for my family's privacy to be respected as I return to Texas and try to get back to a normal life and reunite with my dog Bentley. Thank you, everyone.
That's cute. That's heartwarming. She's young, huh? Wow. She must have been traumatized. This isolation of 21 days when it comes to recovering from Ebola is hard, really hard. And now we've got another doctor who's going to experience that. He comes from Guinea after his great worldly work out there. He lives in Harlem, and he's got it.
New Yorkers who have not been exposed to an infected person's bodily fluids are not at all at risk.
Spencer had been monitoring his temperature twice a day since returning from Guinea, where he treated Ebola patients. Health officials say he was not contagious when he went for a jog, rode the subway, visited a restaurant, and took a car service this week, even going bowling in Brooklyn the night before he was diagnosed.
Trying to figure out how you jump from no temp to 103 in that fell swoop, right? So the New York officials, they literally put an investigative team out there to find out who he's seen. And just like they did in Dallas, it's a whole big trace back. Hopefully everyone else is going to be good. His fiance has been quarantined, and Bellevue is amongst the best. So keep your fingers crossed on that one. Alrighty, so good news, bad news, hopefully good news. All right, next item. Let's come back home for some of the political stuff that's happening here. Polling data. Is Buddy Cianci in trouble? Remember, this whole race has been a litmus test on him, win or lose. The headline here, or the polling data here, rather, my bad, is this is what we had a month ago. We had him up 6 points, right, over Jorge Elorza in second place with Dan Harrop, who's become an embarrassment in this race, 6%. Now, Brown comes out with its own new poll. Here's the headline. Taubman Center releases its own statewide and city polls. And This is the data they came up with. Jorge Elorza up 10 points over Vincent Buddy Cianci, and Dan Harrop down to 3%. Harrop says, I may get out of the race. This is like his 13th different answer about whether he's going to be in this race or not. That 2.8% may matter, but he's going to be on the ballot one way or the other. He really has made a caricature of himself. Anyway, moving on, that is a very interesting little situation, right? So at Brown last week, they had a debate, and Cianci thought he got mishandled there, and I was there as well, and I watched it, and it was a little bit of, let's put it this way, he was paying the price for being Buddy Cianci, right? But here's the Taubman Center director, Professor Marone, who says, you know what, be careful with this 10-point differential because there may be this interesting dynamic involved.
Are we having a new Bradley effect, which we'll have to rename the Cianci effect? Is there a Cianci effect here, or do particularly young people not want to tell a stranger that they really, in their hearts, want to vote for Cianci? And I just have a hunch that there may be some of that playing here.
I don't know if the professor's being diplomatic, not trying to upset Buddy Cianci, but it also may have been a little bit more democratically flavored, this poll, than normal, because it also showed Gina Raimondo up 10 over Alan Fung, and I'm not sure about that either, but who am I and who are you? And November 4th is the ultimate poll. So you have to wonder, will this energize the Cianci camp or demoralize the Cianci camp? Speaking of the Cianci camp, here is the latest that he's dealing with. The news story is about the old style, get out the vote. That's what GOTV means. That is the on-the-ground battle that exists in every election. Here's the headline from today's Providence Journal, attempted ballot tampering reported at homeless shelter. This is the first story by Tom Mooney that talks about a couple of people who were official looking with clipboards looking for mail ballots to collect on behalf of the people who live at this shelter, some permanently, some temporarily. And I guess they are reported to have, muscled, my words, one guy and saying, well, look, return it, I'm not ready, return it, I'm not ready. Well, just give us the empty ballot and we'll figure it out. And he was like, what? And that's the whole big problem there, right? Then WPRI.com reports that the two gentlemen who may have been at the place, by the way, which is loaded with cameras, so this shouldn't be very difficult. Anyway, the state police confirmed for Dan McGowan and Walpy Tova Channel 12 that, Dan told us.
We confirmed that Colonel Stephen O'Donnell says that they are looking into whether the two men from Tom Mooney's story today were Providence police officers.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So the police union is supporting Buddy Cianci. He's got a lot of people who happen to be police who can work on their off time to do this. This is kind of a weird deal. Cianci put out a statement about it today that kind of was, ambivalent. Like, listen, it's all legal. This kind of work, mail ballot work, is legal. We'll cooperate. Don't know of any, mispropriety. Da 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 da. I think he should have been more specific. Yeah, we know the two guys. We dispute that they were muscling the guy, or they were muscling the guy, and we have now asked them no longer to volunteer for us. In other words, be a little bit more specific about the response. It leaves this cloud over Buddy Cianci that it's nothing but old-style Chicago politics, and that's not benefiting him either. There'll be more to come. By the way, the idea that the police got involved, I'm told from the newsroom that, from the TV newsroom, just some chatter, and you'll find this in the reporting on television, that Tom Mooney, actually, the reporter at the Journal, responded to this gentleman's phone call. In other words, the guy who lives at the place called the reporter, he comes down, and then when he comes down and checks in with the shelter director, she then calls the police. That's what I'm told. And so, it's the mess of the election in the city of Providence. All right, next item, real quick here. And it's not going to be that quick. Let me just dig through this as best I can. So I promised you a follow-up. We had a dispute over Healthsource, the health exchange, and the Lieutenant Governor's debate on Wednesday. Here's a headline that kind of talks about it. And this was the assertion that they differ on the future of Healthsource Rhode Island. Not necessarily. Here's what Dan McKee, the Cumberland mayor and Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor, complained about with Catherine Taylor, the Republican, Wednesday night.
you should go back to the recording.
I heard it.
And then, so you heard that I would relinquish the state
That's what I
state
heard
control?
you say, and so
Then
I really...
think you need, all the listeners here need to go look it back. See, I don't put up with misrepresenting the facts.
Maybe
and
you
I
just
don't,
didn't
and I
communicate
don't,
them
and
well.
I don't believe that that's that the people like that either.
No,
so
they don't.
when they go back and they see that I never said about sending it back to the federal government, and I never said about relinquishing state control. What I did say was that it's a huge number, and we need to either get cost-effective, cost-neutral, or close to cost-neutral on it, and that's what I would work on.
You know, so I went back and checked. In fact, the Taylor campaign sent me 2 pieces of audio from Rhode Island Public Radio that proved their point that McKee was looking to relinquish control of this healthcare exchange, this Obama thing in Rhode Island. Well, here's one piece from Rhode Island Public Radio in August.
Long term, no, I don't believe that at $20 million or more a cost to maintain that the health resource, that's going to be a good value for the people in the state of Rhode Island. And either we need to regionalize that strategy or we need to get out of the business because that's just far too much money to spend.
Okay, he does talk about getting out of the business, but his first item is that he wants a regional approach to funding it, which would mean that we still run the operation. Here's his second point in October to the same media.
I think what you need to find, Scott, is you got to find a way to make that cost neutral, or as close to cost neutral as possible. And so reaching out, if it's across lieutenant governor, as governors to governors, or collectively as state leaders, we need to reach out with our bordering states and determine whether or not there's something that can be done, just like I did with the municipal leaders. There's savings there that could really, that we need to help realize. So
I would give the Catherine Taylor campaign a 15-yard penalty for suggesting something that really Dan McKee didn't really say. I told you I'd follow up. Their own evidence supplied kind of belies what they're trying to charge him with. You can check it out yourself. And finally, Hillary is hanging around, but she came so late that prior to our broadcast deadline, we have no pictures. We have old pictures, don't we? We have an old picture of Hillary, like you need to know who she is. Do we have a headline? I forgot what we had. We got so much production in the show. I can't. Oh yeah, there it is. She came. Simple as that. And she was also up there for Martha Coakley, who reportedly is getting her bell rung with Charlie Baker in that Massachusetts gubernatorial race. There was some scene setting at Rhode Island College, except that was a different rally because you know what? She was late. But we'll check in on Monday about what happened on Friday. There's Hillary Clinton. You may know who she is. When we come back, Cormick Lynch. No, my state of mind. I have to do that. See, I changed this, my decision, and I changed the format of the show. And now Jess is yelling at me and Rox had a heart attack. That's okay. Just put up the phone number here. You call me about anything I just said. We're putting this up front in the show because I want to hear more from you, right? 228-1886 is the number. Call me, leave me a voicemail, or send me an email, whatever. Here's a Facebook post on Rue Reese, who was here the other day. Rue, you need to get out in public, and, you know, because we haven't seen you. That's what Randy was saying on the Facebook page. You know who Rue Reese is, right? He's running against Jim Langevin in the 1st District for Congress. That's Rue. Rue, they say you need to get out more. Can I go now? I can break now? I can break now. Cormick Lynch is next. He wants to get in on the show, for God's sake. He's running for Congress, too. By the way, Rue Reese is running in the 2nd District, not the 1st District. I got the Republican running in the 1st District here in studio. Jess was going, well, she should have yelled at me. Don't you like it when they yell? Did Sen tell me on your state of mind that you like it when they yell at me on the air because it makes the show more fun? I mean, it's not like this is, we're not in church, for heaven's sakes. Here's the headline. Oh, actually, this is not a headline. There's no headline. It's no headline.
That's who I am.
This is interesting. So Jess said, I'm going to Google Cormick Lynch. Interesting approach, don't you think, Cormick?
Yeah, that's how we do it these days.
And that's what it comes up with. 29-year-old Iraq War veteran, for which we thank you so much for your service, and the idea that you get no previous political experience.
Yes, I think that's a good thing, and
that's
so
how
do a
you're
lot of
labeled.
other people. That's a great thing. I think there was a comment on that article. People, what does political experience mean, Dan? You go down to Washington and pull a lever? Because that's so hard, right? You get some real-world experience, some people that understand the needs of the common man, common woman, the working class, because it's being eviscerated, and get some true forceful representation down there in Washington.
All right, then, and that'll wrap it up.
No, I like
that.
That's about as much attention I've gotten so far this campaign,
Well,
right?
listen, you've gotten your part here. I mean, we
Absolutely.
try to point out that you're in this race. Are you frustrated?
It's challenging. It's an uphill battle. I think you need to monitor the frustrations and deal with it. As we've discussed before, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to fail forward. Regardless of how things pan out, I'll be back. But I think...
Although, that was profound. You have to fail forward.
Yes, sir.
Elaborate.
It means you can't take your toys out of the sandbox, go home, get a bad attitude, and not come back. You need to take an honest inventory of what you did right, what you did wrong, what you could do better, learn the lessons, and come back for more.
You sound like you're doing, a post-game wrap-up of the election 10 days in advance. But I understand, and I respect it, because I think you're probably being pretty practical. My guess is you don't think you're going to win this race.
I think there's still a chance, right? A lot of people have said to me, listen, kid, we like what we see, right? But come back in 2016. And that's what I mean when I say it's kind of frustrating, because in 2016, if Hillary Clinton is the presidential nominee for the Democrats, it's going to be very hard for anyone to get one of these congressional seats, right? I could raise 7 figures in 2016.
Wave.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. There's no master lever in 2016 in Rhode Island.
You're right. It's still going to pull out more of a left demographic, I think, with it being a presidential election year. But let me tell you why I think 2014 is a year we have to seize. It's not a presidential election year. The last non-presidential election year, 2010, Cicilline won with 50.3% of the vote. There's no way you can tell me he's more popular now than he was in 2010, right? Everyone looks at how much the Republicans are pulling. Everyone looks, they say, Doherty pulled 42%, had 7 figures. That doesn't mean Cicilline's pulling 58. There's an independent in the race in 2010 and 2012 that took 6, 7, 8%, right? There's no independent in the race this time. It's my name and his name on the ballot. That's it. You can say what you want about Cianci running. He interferes with the master lever in Providence, where it's used the most and where it would be most harmful against me. There's an undercurrent of, an anti-incumbent vote, and that was very, very clear in Congressman Cicilline's primary.
You didn't raise a lot of money, and unfortunately, you didn't raise a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. I think a lot of
It's too
people...
bad that it is, but it is.
You're right. I think that's the problem. I think that's why people get a sour taste in their mouth about politics. I'm not going to let that defeat me by any means. But people are focusing on the gubernatorial race, and there were a lot of people that made max donations to Colonel Doherty that didn't, they got 42% with the max donation. They really weren't eager to cut a check this time around. But listen, there's a lot of things I've accomplished with limited resources.
Well, hold your thought, because I'd like you to alliterate them. Cormick Lynch running against David Cicilline in the 1st District. As Monty Python would say, he ain't dead yet. Stay with us. So you were going to run a list of the things that you think you've accomplished, Cormick Lynch, candidate for Congress against David Cicilline in the 1st District?
Yes, I think no matter if I win or lose, I've brought a lot of very important issues to attention. For example, the congressman wrote a letter to John Kerry regarding the Marine that's jailed in Mexico, right? He didn't seem to care too much about that issue before a Marine combat veteran was running against him and challenging.
Weird story, man. The guy just kind of drives over the border with a weapon, and I can't believe America hasn't just put its thumb back down and said,
get us back. Right. With all we do for you,
like,
get him back yesterday. And
the
only reason he's not back yet is because he hasn't been demanded back politically, and there hasn't been enough pressure on the Secretary of State, John Kerry. Right. But you know what? If that kid gets out a week earlier because Congressman Cicilline wrote John Kerry a letter, this candidacy was worthwhile.
Because you think you forced influence that. Good for you. What
absolutely.
else?
I think the issues with the tepid response to Ebola. I think the common denominator of government inaction and government mismanagement, and I think it's refreshing to see that. Listen, a 29-year-old kid who's never held political office before can walk off the street and do something. It's a validation of my First Amendment right.
All right,
You know?
listen, it's not like this has got to be your swan song. I mean, I will have you back after the election if you so choose to want to engage the process.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you this, because people also will they may not want to waste their vote on someone who's making a one-timer. So tell me, are you in this for the long haul?
Yes, I'll be back.
2016, you will be a candidate for
think
Congress?
I'm not going to delay my life until 2016 and then run again, right? I will run again. I think maybe 2018, I really want to do something meaningful. I want to fill the gaps in my candidacy. I want to strengthen myself so I can come back for more next time and keep playing to win. I don't think it's best to say, yeah, I'm just going to put my life on hold for 2 years, come back and jump in the political ring. No, I really want to do something meaningful. If that means 2018 in terms of 2016, you know,
you got to find a way, and the Republican Party's got to find a way to be more financially resourceful. Because unfortunately, it's part of what gets you into the primetime debates and the like. But speaking of, you taped one with Channel 10 in Rapley, correct?
Yes, we taped it this morning. It was good. There were fireworks. There were
so that'll air Sunday on Channel 10.
Yes, and it's on the website now.
Okay, so I mean, you know, draw whatever fair attention. In 15 seconds, tell everybody why you should still get their vote on November 4th.
ISIS, unemployment, and Ebola. If you like all three, vote for the incumbents. If you want something different, vote for me, because I'll give you strong, forceful representative in Washington, and I'll tell you the truth.
I think I'll just leave it there. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Great
Thanks for having me on.
All right, final thought coming. So one more thought here at the end of the broadcast. You know, it's too bad that we've got these young guys like Cormick Lynch and even Rue Reese to a certain extent who put themselves out there and who get thumped in these general elections for Congress. Not that we know he's going to get thumped, but odds on he will. Somehow the Republican Party in the state has got to figure out how to find the resources for these candidates who sometimes show themselves as blue chip. And I think that Cormick Lynch is blue chip. Another candidate that you want to keep your eye on is Mike Smith. He's running for state senate against Teresa Paiva-Weed, the Senate president. He will be our guest on Monday night. So make a note of that, 7:30 and 11:30. All right? You have a great weekend, and I'll see you on the radio at noon on Monday on WPRO. I'm so glad you tuned in. Thank you for doing so.